Good evening. You are welcome to the fourth lecture for the module Project 1. In this lecture, I'm planning to deliver some ideas about how to write the preliminary project proposal. Let's look at what you have done so far. I'm looking at the lectures and then what are we going to do today and what you will have to do within the semester in the future. So there are three lectures, as I have been informed. The first one was on how to prepare an effective project presentation. The second one on how to do literature review and referencing. I hope you all know how to make good presentations and especially how to do literature reviews and how to do referencing. That's very important. Then the third lecture, I was also present when Mrs. Siamala Petia delivered on identify a problem to be solved and develop a problem statement. So today I'm continuing with that. The report that you have to write is called a preliminary project proposal. So today I will be guiding you through how to compile such a report. And there should be one more lecture to guide you through how to do the situation analysis, specifically the methodology that you have to use in situation analysis, the details of the methodology. So before we do go through this report, you need to understand what are the requirements of this module CI2305. So there are 5 learning outcomes. I have taken the first 3 which are relevant here. On the successful completion of this module, students are able to, the first learning outcome is identify broadly defined engineering problems related to civil engineering discipline using fundamental engineering knowledge. The keyword here is broadly defined engineering problem. There are many different types of problems, and when you take the world scenario, the world has agreed in the engineering education, all problems can be categorized into 3 levels. Very complex engineering problems, that is one category. Then very easy day-to-day type of engineering problems, they are called well-defined problems. And in between, which are not very complex, which are not very routine, they are called broadly defined engineering problems. The NDT program is focused on preparing you to handle broadly defined engineering problems. So when you are selecting your problem, it should not be a very complex problem. At the same time, it should not be a very easy daily, routine type of a problem. Why we can't take the complex problems? We don't do theory into that detail. We are not going into first principles in some modules, some subject areas. Uh, so therefore, we are unable to, solve engineering problems starting from the first principles, fundamentals. Therefore, you have to be very mindful when you are selecting. Don't select a problem which you cannot handle. I hope your supervisors have already guided you. You have already selected good, broadly defined engineering problems. The second learning outcome of the module is to examine the identified broadly defined engineering problem with a situation analysis using analytical tools and or fundamental science and engineering knowledge and or research literature as appropriate. So here, once you select the problem, now you need to analyze the problem, the current situation of the problem, which is called the situation analysis. And in the situation analysis, when you want to analyze the situation of a problem, you have to collect the relevant data, and then you have to use some analytical tools, or or even with that, so you have to use some fundamental science and engineering knowledge, and you may not know all the knowledge you need at this moment. For that, you have to read literature, right? You have to read the books and journals and related material to find knowledge by yourself, of course, under the guidance of your supervisors. So once you do that, then you have the problem. Now you analyze it for the current situation, and then you can form some ideas about the problem. So about the solutions. So we call this as formulating basic concepts of possible solutions. So for any problem, the main point here is that we need to always remember that for any problem, there are more than one solutions. So we call them alternative solutions. So in semester 3, what you have to do is find different possible solutions for the problem that you have identified, and of which you have done the thorough analysis of the situation. So when you are finding these alternative solutions, you have to consider not only the technical aspects or the uh, cost of it, but you also have to consider public health and safety, cultural, societal, and environmental aspects. Actually, the technical aspects in detail and cost of the solution will be handled in the project 2 module in semester 4. This is to give a broad idea, and actually the situation analysis is not covered under this lecture, so that will be done in the next lecture. That earlier what we discussed is the module learning outcomes, and also you have something called module outline. What you have to do in the module. There are seven points in this module outline of this module, and here I have selected 4 which are related here. So number 1, introduction. Select a study area, scope, objectives, outcomes. We are going to revisit those words. So let me go to the second one. Then project formulation, project title, project framework, formulation of elements of a project proposal. Again, third one, situation analysis. For that, you have to do a background study, search for information, collection of basic data needed for situation analysis, investigate the selected problem by performing a situation analysis. And alternative analysis, examine alternative solutions for public health and safety, cultural, societal, and environmental aspects, like the learning outcome in the previous slide. So what I try to cover is 1, 2, and part of 3, because real situation analysis will be done in the next lecture, but I will do a little bit of that, some kind of entering into that part I will do. So at the end of the semester, we need to understand very clearly what is the module outcome. Once you do this module, what are we expecting you to do? The basic thing is you have to prepare a preliminary project proposal. It's a report, right? A small report called preliminary project proposal. So if you search if you Google, you will find that there are similar names. There are many, different names that we can call these reports, like project concept report, project formulation report, options appraisal report. So usually all of them are very similar. There could be very minor differences, but for this purpose, we will use the term preliminary project proposal. What is the aim of this preliminary project proposal? To develop a proposal containing basic concepts of alternative solutions to the broadly defined engineering problem selected, considering public health and safety, cultural, societal, and environmental aspects. So I think now I have repeated about 3 times what are the aspects to be considered in semester 3. First thing is you need to find the broadly defined engineering problem, which I'm very sure you have all of it. You have already found a problem, and you have to finally come up with different solutions, alternative solutions, at least 3. And how do you consider or how do you develop those concepts? By looking at the public health, safety, cultural, societal, and environmental aspects. That is what is expected in semester 3 module. For the easiness of writing the report, I thought I will go through the content of the report. So as you all know, usually when there is a report, there has to be a table of content. Now this table of content basically has 2 parts. In the first part, which we called as the front matter, we write the preface, acknowledgements, content page, list of figures, list of tables, list of annexes. That is, if you have any figures, tables, or annexes, and the executive summary. What you have to note here is that this part, front matter, the page numbering we usually use Roman numbers. You can see Roman 1, 2, 3 I have put, and then I put the question marks. Right? So you can arrange in that order. But the detailed report is the second part, detailed chapters. So there will be a few chapters. In this case, I have decided that you can have about 5 chapters. Here you can see the first chapter. You have the introduction, project description. Now, what is the meaning of project description? So it's about the project that you have undertaken to solve some problem. There's a very brief, maybe about 2 paragraphs about the project. Then the significance of solving the problem. Significance means the importance. Why should you solve this problem? Because as we know, in our daily life, we can find thousands of problems, but we are not going to solve all the problems. So why this problem, engineering problem, is important for you or for society or some people? Why it is important? That is the significance. You can write about that. Then there has to be a problem statement, aim and objectives and scope, and then project outcomes. Project outcomes means if the project is done, what can be the expected deliverables and benefits? What benefits will be there once you do the project, or what are the things you can deliver after doing the project? For example, this report that you are preparing, it's a deliverable at the end of the project, right? And then resource requirements and project timeline. So these compose the first chapter, introduction. I will be coming back to some of them. So let me go to the next part, chapter 2. In chapter 2, we write the background. So the background also can be divided into 3 parts. If you have selected a problem related to roads, you need to find knowledge with reference to soil, highway, road engineer, whatever, right? If you have selected a construction problem, then you have to have that knowledge. Or a water related problem, you have to have that knowledge. So it's about the broad knowledge of the subject area, not about your problem, but the total area, right? So that you can write the first part of the background, 2.1, general subject knowledge. Then 2.2, you can write issue specific technical knowledge about the selected problem, specific technical knowledge that you have to have. Under that, you also must give the location of the problem, different technical matters related to that, who are the stakeholders of the issue, and the legislative background. This is very important. In most of our engineering technology courses, we don't touch about the law, but now it's becoming very important. All the time it has been important, but it is becoming very important for you to understand and realize that we cannot work as we like, but we have to abide by the laws of the institution, of the country. So therefore, you need to know what kind of acts or ordinances, different law enactments that will guide us to do this specific job. So therefore, it's important for you to find that knowledge also. Then under 2.3, you can write about the non-technical aspects, which relates to the issue that you are going to, issue means the problem that you are going to study. So here we can again see the three areas we are going to consider in semester 3. That is public health and safety, cultural and societal aspects, and environmental aspects. That is your chapter 2, background. So after the background, now you should go and see what is the real situation of this problem. For that, you need to collect data and you have to write a subchapter on data and the sources from where you have got data. And 3.2, what are the methods you have used to analyze this? There can be two types of data, technical data and non-technical data. So what are the methods you have what are the data, and then what are the methods you have selected to analyze them. Then after you do the situation analysis only, you can scientifically propose different alternative solutions, right? So those have to come after your analysis, after the situation analysis. Depending on the data you have collected, depending on the analysis you have done, you have to show that it is not something that is just coming out of your mind, but it is something backed by scientific data and analysis, your alternative solutions to the problem. Then you can conclude. So there are 5 chapters, and very importantly, at the end, you must write a list of references because especially for this chapter 2, you have to refer a lot. Your references should be given, and then if you have used any annexures, like, say rainfall data, if you have a set of rainfall data, you can annex them without putting it in the main report. Now, let's look at the specific items that we have discussed in the previous 2 slides. Project description. Now here I'm trying to give you some examples so that you can, it will be easy for you to write according to your selected project. Now last year there was a project. A group of students selected a school somewhere in Gapa district where they have a problem with drinking water, right? So here I have written the project description. Nilpanawa Central College in Minuangoda has classes from grade 1 to grade 13. So it's a very general, I'm starting in a very general tone so that anybody can understand what I'm trying to say. The school's water supply source is a dug well in the school premises. However, the students and the staff find it hard to get adequate amount of drinking water, especially during dry climates due to the drying up of the well. Just very, even a normal person can understand. So that's how we should start without bringing in a lot of technical jargon. So we are trying to build up now. the project, right? So further, the school authorities have noted increased number of students and staff frequently falling sick. Therefore, they have a need to check the suitability of water for drinking purposes. This project aims to find a solution to the drinking water issue at Minu/Nilpanava Central College. So similarly, you can write few paragraphs, maybe 2, 3, 4, not more than that, paragraphs about your project, right? Basic description. Then significance, I told you the importance of solving this problem. 1.2. So here, now we are coming a little bit into the, the scientific technical world. You can say water is a primary need for human beings, especially in a school. Good quality supply of drinking water in adequate volumes is a basic need for the children who are active not only in the classroom work, but also in other extracurricular activities such as sports. Now, it is good if you can find this kind of idea from a book that you read. If you find this idea for your problem, why the significance of solving some problem, if you find it through a book or some reference material, you can give here the reference material as well. So the second paragraph, solving this project will lead to improved health of students and teachers by assuring good quality water in sufficient amounts. Additionally, through this project, water quality could be assessed and find out whether the frequent sickness reported in the school are related to poor water quality. In such a case, possible remedial measures could be recommended. So the first thing is there has to be some water quality checks. And then if the sicknesses, we don't know what sicknesses they are talking about. So you have to get data about when you do the situation analysis, you have to go and collect the type of sicknesses they have reported, right? And then by looking at the water quality also, you can interview some PHIs or some knowledgeable people and establish whether there's a relationship. And if there is a relationship, if the quality is not good, then you can talk about what are the remedial measures. Okay. So when you write these two paragraphs, I feel that the importance of problem, why you should resolve this problem, there is some argument for you. So let's go to the next problem statement. Actually, problem statement was taught to you at the last lecture. So I have taken this from last lecture. The problem statement act as a concise objective defining the current issue, its impact and desired outcome. It focuses on the problem, clear understanding of the problem, reasons for the problem, how to set boundaries of the problem, that is called scope, evidence for problem, data and relevant information. However, it would act as a gap analysis between the present status to future desired status, which means outcome or the overall result. I'm not going to explain this, but refer lecture 3, Mrs. Namli Simbalapati, what she taught you last time. Now, in my example, now see how I have written the problem statement. You can do a better job. So what I have written, the Minu/Nilpanava Central College has reported that school face a shortage of drinking water, especially during dry seasons. As the source of water supply, a dug well within the school premises become dry during the dry weather. Additionally, the quality of well water is unknown and needs to ascertain whether it meets the water quality parameters acceptable for drinking water. So, from the problem description and from the significant statements, I have built up so the problem statement. So you can see here I have used very specific words like water quality parameters, acceptable for drinking water. You can do much better when you refer the different materials. You can find the correct terminology for the problem you are dealing with. So therefore, this project aims to study drinking water issue at the school to deliver solutions for both quantity and quality issues. So that is my problem statement for that problem. When you look at the aim, now when there is the problem statement clearly written, it's easy for us to write the aim. So the aim of this project is to prepare a preliminary project proposal to solve the quantity and quality issues of drinking water supply at Minu Nilpanava Central College. Right? You understand? So the aim is not very, long paragraph. It has to be very specific, focused, uh, small field, like, usually it's one sentence, uh, specific and focus, so that anybody who is looking at the aim will understand what the project is about. And this aim can be expanded using objectives. Sometimes the aim and objective are the same. Sometimes we use aim for the larger, wider objective, and can then use the word objectives for the steps, right? And usually this object aim is something very wide, very broad, but the objective should be smart. We call it should be smart. Smart means S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for relevant, and T for time. And all these objectives should start with a verb, and the verbs also you have to select very, the preliminary things that you have to do, preliminary verbs at the beginning, and as you go down at the last part, the verb should indicate some higher level work, right? So I will say whether it has happened here. So the first objective is comprehend the knowledge on drinking water supply and water quality through scientific literature. Comprehend, which means gather, find the knowledge, gather, collect the knowledge, and understand it. It's not only gathering, collect and understand. That is the meaning of comprehend. The knowledge on drinking water supply and water quality through scientific literature. That's something that anybody can do. So it's a kind of a very the difficulty level is much low. Then identify the drinking water issue of the school in detail. Okay. So the next one is to identify. Now they say that there's a problem, but someone has to visit there, collect data, and talk to people initially and see, identify what is the exact problem. So you have to, when you do that, you will invariably collecting data. That is the time that you start collecting data. You can keep on collecting the data that you want for the situation analysis. So third objective is to analyze, that is the word. Now it is little bit difficult than comprehending and identifying, right? Analyze the data collected on technical aspects of the current situation. Now you need to know what are the data, and for different data, what are the methods for analyzing. All this will be covered in the next lecture, how to do the situation analysis. So also you have to find non-technical aspects of the issue, the impacts of public health, safety, culture, society, and environment. And then finally, you develop concepts of probable alternative solution. So develop is a high order verb when it comes to teaching and learning. So to develop something, you need to identify, you need to comprehend, you need to analyze, you need to do all those things for you to be able to develop something, right? So that is something new that is coming with an understanding, scientific background. So I hope you understand how to write the aim and objectives. Most probably for all of you, the last one will be the same, develop concepts of probable alternative solutions, right? But the in between, you may have to change few words to match with your selected. The next item in the chapter 1 is the scope. Scope means limiting factors or boundaries of the project. So these limiting factors can be geographical. Right? Your problem is within a certain geographical area. For example, if it's a road, or it could be within a certain administrative institution or function. For example, a long time back, there was a project where the students want to study about the waste generated in railways. So that is only within the railway department, right? So that's an administrative boundary or an area. That is the example that I have taken earlier. It's a school. So this problem is limited to the area and also specific part of the issue. Even in that example, the school has lesser amount of water and low quality. We are only considering the problem of drinking water. School needs water for agriculture, for washing, and all those things. That part we don't consider, right? So, like that, you can set up the scope. So, you can work within the scope of your problem. Then project outcomes, deliverables. At the end of the semester 3, what are the outcomes you will get? What can you deliver? Now, for example, one of the things is you can find the real reasons for the issue that has been reported, right? You have found an issue, but you don't know exactly the reasons. People may say different things, but you can scientifically investigate to find the reasons. And another example is the preliminary project report itself. When you give the report, if it's a well-written report, that's a very good deliverable for someone else even to find solutions for the problem. Next part in chapter 1 is resource requirements. What resources will be required to carry out the project? In any project, initially, we have to see what are the resources required because we need to find out the cost of the project, right? So therefore, for example, our resources can be divided into few different groups. For example, personnel. What kind of people you need? Do you need a GIS specialist? Do you need a surveyor? Do you need enumerators? Enumerators means if you are going to conduct a survey, house to house, household surveys, then you need people to go from house to house and collect data. Those people are called enumerators. So even you all can act as enumerators. Then you need different equipments. You will need to collect some samples, for example, soil samples. You may have need some testing apparatus. You may need software, different types of software. You may need water samples and the facilities to test them. So all these are equipment type of resources. Then you need different data. So all of you, it is better if you can start with a survey map. There are maps called one is to 50,000 and one is to 10,000 because all civil engineering problems usually will start with the maps. Then we have rainfall data, population data, soil data, and different types of data and the cost of getting those data. Sometimes the maps you cannot get for free, right? Then you need direct funds, money directly for traveling, stationery, and other. So these are the resource requirement for your project. Then you have to give a timeline, right? So Gantt chart, you have to break the full project one module, work into small activities and decide the time that can be allocated for each activity. Draw the timeline indicating progress. Now you can see here for this example, I have divided the activities into 6, but you can do many more numbers of activities. You can divide the whole thing into a larger number of activities and you can see there are two lines, red and blue. Red is the our plan time. You can see the understand the subject area. I have kept about 10 weeks because I know as the second year students, as you come, you don't have sufficient knowledge on any other subject. So therefore, you'll need little more time to read, talk, and understand, right? Discuss and understand. So the blue line shows us the progress. Now, assuming that we are on the 8th week, what I'm saying is you are still trying to understand the subject. It's okay. You can and pass the red line also. If you look at the second one, identify the issue, you have kept 3 weeks, but within 2 weeks, you have been able to identify the issue. That's good, right? But setting the aim and objectives, we have kept another 2 weeks, but you have taken 3 weeks. And data collection for situation analysis, essays for situation analysis, we have left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but we have started 2 weeks later than anticipated, and we don't know how long you will need because we are still on the 8th week. Therefore, I can't draw it beyond 8th week. And data analysis, we wanted to start it from 8th week, but we have not started and developed concepts of solutions. We are planning to do that on 13th and 14th weeks. Something like that, right? This is to show the timeline. You will need this for your progress report as well as for the final report. Okay, now we come to chapter 2. In the chapter 2, that is, we have to write about the background. So 2.1, subject area. So say issue is floods in paddy lands. So that's another example, right? So you can write why floods occur in irrigated lands, not related to the specific issue, but it's a general knowledge. Here, subject area covering the total subject area from published work, which means books and journals, reputed websites, not any website, but you can take matters from like uh, Asian Development Bank or World Bank. Those people do projects, so therefore you can that kind of uh, websites you can use as references, not Wikipedia or not any other commercial websites. It is preferred if you use some websites which are legitimate, right? Legitimate in the sense which everybody trusts. So 2.1 is for the total area. Now, in the former example I have taken, the people talk about the water quality of that school. It is not good. Then we can at least, you should be able to find out what are the water quality standards. Who is uh, setting the standards? One place is World Health Organization. Are there any other places? And what are the standards? You can get some very important parameters like pH value, and different parameters. You can read and get those things. You will learn them in the next semester. Doesn't matter. You can read and find this information, right? Then you come to the specific issue and the technical knowledge about the specific issue. Location, it's very important. You have to find the location. I told you you have to include the map of Sri Lanka to show the location. Give the province, district, Pradeshia Sabha division or whatever, and then can give the access road. Also, you can use 1:50,000 maps or 1:10,000 maps to give the exact location. Right? Then 2.2.2 technical aspects. You can give a general description about the rainfall of the area, soil conditions of the area if they are relevant. Usually rainfall is relevant to many projects in civil engineering and any other similar aspect depending on the project, right? Then main stakeholders. Who are the persons? What is the meaning of stakeholder? Stakeholder means a person or group of people impacted by a issue or person or groups who can impact the project, right? For example, the same example, I mean, the same thing if we can take the water issue at that school, the people who are impacted are the students and the staff. But the parents are also impacted. If a child gets sick, the parent is also impacted. And who are the people who can impact? They are the, say, education administrators, right? And maybe the politicians of the area, or Pradesh Sabha, some other, places like that. They can impact the people who are giving funds, people who are giving authority. So those are the people who can impact the project. So you have to give a list of stakeholders with brief descriptions, right? Are they getting impacted or are they people who can impact? For example, when you say students, you can say this school has so many boys, so many girls, and maybe age groups if you can give things like that. Uh, so under each stakeholder, you can give a brief description. Then legislative background, as I have told you, which acts, which ordinances are to be used to solve this problem. Then you come to 2.3, the issue specific non-technical aspects. So we already know that there are three areas we are looking at: public health and safety. So you can write that under 2.3.1. What are the health issues observed during the past which may have caused by inadequate and poor quality water, right? So you can do a survey to understand students' perceptions and their current practices. Are the students drinking sufficient water in school? Are they using the bathroom, toilet? Because some children, when they come to school from morning until they go home, they don't use the bathroom, which is very bad, right? They can get kidney diseases. So we need to drink water and we need to, urinate also. So that kind of health knowledge may not be available with them, right? Because they don't like to use the water there. They may not, and maybe they don't have water to drink also. So that kind of thing, uh, you have to actually do small surveys, small interviews that you will be taught in the for the situation analysis. When you are doing that, that is the type of data you collect and then analyze. The cultural and societal aspects. Is there any impact from the culture, or how the issue is impacted on the society, right? So in this place, that example, I don't know, in a place like Minuangoda, whether there is a cultural issue. I can't think of. There could be. But social impact, yes, because the neighboring people who are sending their children, they are getting impacted, right? So what are their issues? What do they think about this issue, right? Maybe that they have to take the child very frequently to get medical checkups or medical help to doctors by spending a lot of money. So those things, right? Environmental impacts. What are the environmental impacts, right? Of any problem that you are handling. So that is 2.3. And chapter 3, I'm not going to touch. That is a situation analysis that will be explained to you in lecture 5. And chapter 4 is the alternative solutions. At least you should initially formulate about 5 different solutions, right? Uh, so, for example, now in that uh, problem, that project group, so they found few different solutions. So instead of the well, they found, okay, what if we dig the deep well, right? That's a dug well, shallow well, what they have. So they are one of the solution was to have a deep well, right? Another solution was to get a water line from the nearby community water supply. There's a community water supply scheme nearby, to get a supply line from that. Third solution was to see how they can get national water supply and drainage water. So like that, they had also whether the rainwater harvesting can be done. So there were different ideas, and finally uh, ideas of solutions, and finally they came to the three most possible. alternatives. That is to put in the report. So select the best three alternative solutions using arguments and rationale built on non-technical aspects, right? Also technical also, but I didn't write technical because you may not have time to do a lot of technical work. But the non-technical part you should be able to do now. And in semester 4, you can, when you develop and design the alternatives, then you can go into uh, in a larger way, in a bigger way, you can go into the technical uh, aspects. So that's the end of this presentation. Hope it has been useful to you. Thank you for listening.